He will mention from the.
Oh.
You can start.
Alrighty. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We're going to start our weekly discussion on the, I think, 33rd letter discussing Tawheed. So we are on the section, we're going to continue our discussion on the fourth phrase, his is the dominion. And we'd need, I'd like to request a volunteer to read. All right, Dua, if you can start from the middle of the paragraph where it says the fourth phrase is the dominion.
Like where that is?
Yes.
That is.
The second station of the.
Okay. That is, every creature from the face of the earth to the divine throne, from the ground to the Pleiades, from the minutest particles to the heavenly bodies, everything from pre-eternity to post-eternity, the heavens and the earth, this world and the hereafter belongs to him. His is the highest degree of ownership in the form of the greatest affirmation of divine unity, Tawheed-e-Azam. A mighty proof of this was imparted to this powerless one's mind in Arabic at a pleasant time in pleasant circumstances. For the sake of that pleasant memory, we shall note down those same phrases, then write their meanings. His is the dominion because the macrocosm is similar to the microcosm. What is fashioned by his power is a missive expressing his determining. His creating this macrocosm makes it as a place of prostration, while his giving of existence to the microcosm makes it as prostrating. His bringing the former into being makes it as a property, while his giving of existence to the latter makes it as owned. His art in the former displays it as a book, while his coloring in the latter shines through speech. His power in the former reveals his majesty, while his mercy in the latter arrays his bounty. His majesty in the former testifies that he is one, while his bounty in the latter proclaims that he is single, undivided. His stamp on the former is on all things, universal and particular, while his seal on the latter is on the body and on the limbs.
I think we should read the first section.
All right. First section. The macrocosm is similar to the microcosm, which is fashioned by his power, is a missive expressing his determining. That is to say, the macrocosm, which is called the universe, and the microcosm, which is the miniature specimen and is called man, point to evidences of divine unity, both within man's self and outside it, that are written by the pens of divine power and divine determining. There is within man the sample, on a very small scale, of the orderly art which is in the universe. And as the art that is present in the vast sphere testifies to the single maker, so the microscopic art which is on a tiny scale in man points to the maker and demonstrates his unity. Moreover, as man is a meaningful missive inscribed by his sustainer, and a well-composed ode written by divine determining, so is the universe a well-composed ode written by that same pen, but on a vast scale. Is it at all possible that anything other than the single one of unity could have a hand in placing the stamp of uniqueness on men's faces, which, although they resemble one another, all have their distinguishing marks, and have a hand in setting the seal of unity on the universe, all of whose creatures cooperate, helping and supporting one another? Could anything interfere in this?
All right, thanks for that. I guess I'd ask before we proceed, does anything stand out? Specifically, anything need clarification? We're probably going to go through this again very thoroughly, a lot of concepts. Brother Yusuf, please.
So in general, just to give a what's going on with this part of the text, because it's going to be a longer part for describing Lahul Mulk, his is the dominion. So this Arabic phrase that, or the translation of the Arabic phrase that he put here, is starting with he is the dominion because, and then lists 7 different reasons for or evidences for what he understands from Lahul Mulk. And the first one is the macrocosm is similar to the microcosm. And he's going to keep giving example from one end and the other end and saying that Lahul Mulk, the dominion is his because this end and the other end, like the 2 ends of the spectrum of manifestation of dominion, is showing the same pattern or same signature on it. Like what is fashioned by his power is a missive expressing his determining. Okay, let me see if there's something missing in here. Just a second. So the first one is Masnu'a Qudratihi Maktuba Qadarihi. So saying one is the creation of his pen of power. The other one is creation of his pen of measure. When he looks at the creation of the universe, he says, we do observe the manifestation of power. But when we look at the creation of man, the microcosm, we observe that everything's put there within measure. He says, in one hand, seeing this power, manifestation of power, and the other one seeing the manifestation of this qadar, the measure, is in total showing that from there to here, everything is his. And the same pattern will keep repeating. We can talk more about this specific, the first section, but this is the main pattern. He will look at the macrocosm, microcosm, and we'll see that the same hand is at work from one end to the other. Manifestation is going to be similar but different in one end to the other end.
Can you clarify what he might be referring to as macrocosm and microcosm?
So macrocosm is the whole existence, if you like, galaxies or planets and whatnot. And then microcosm is human. So at the human, you see whatever you observe in the macrocosm, you observe the same hand at work at microcosm as well, but it's taking a different shape, a different manifestation when it comes to human. So this is going to be the 2 ends, and seeing the harmony between the 2 ends makes you think that, oh, then all the dominion in between these 2 ends of the spectrum is from the same source.
All right. I'll go through in the first paragraph, line by line. So his is the dominion that is every creature from the face of the earth to the divine throne, from the ground to the Pleiades, from the minutest particles to the heavenly bodies, everything from pre-eternity to post-eternity, the heavens and the earth, this world and the hereafter belongs to him. So Nursi is making a claim, a general claim. I assume he's going to give us maybe some proofs and reasonings for why everything, the biggest to the smallest, belongs to God and is encompassed in his dominion. His is the highest degree of ownership in the form of the greatest affirmation of divine unity, Tawhid-i-Azam. Okay, so that, I guess that is the name of, you know, the one who possesses the ownership, and that it's a singular ownership. There's no partner in his dominion. A mighty proof of this was imparted to this powerless one's mind. So Nursi, he received a proof in Arabic at a pleasant time in pleasant circumstances. For the sake of that pleasant memory, we shall note down those same phrases, then write their meanings. So I guess he will elaborate on this proof, this mighty proof for God's oneness in his dominion. His is the dominion because the macrocosm is similar to the microcosm. As we were saying, the the universe, the planets, the stars, everything outside the human being is similar to the microcosm that is what occurs in the human being. I guess maybe it's not necessarily physically within our bodies. It might refer to that, but also the life of the human being, the experiences, interactions has a relation to the macro. What is fashioned by his power is a missive expressing his determining. Is missive like a command? Is that what that means?
So, like going with the original text, it says masnu'a qudratihi maktuba qadarihi. So one is the production or the artwork of his power. The other one is the work of pen of his measure, of his qadar. Letter, maktub, yeah, maktub. So as if he has written, handwritten, with his measure.
And is that's referring to the macro and the micro?
Yes.
That one is art and one is a qadar, but it would not be that they both apply to either one.
So, or when you look at one, what you observe first and foremost is power at work because of its tremendous hugeness. Then you look at the other one. In one sense, human has everything that's outside the, outside the universe. All those feelings, all those, like as if there are black holes out there, and there's a black hole in you, which is this, I don't know, maybe your loneliness is a type of black hole in you, but there are suns out there, and there's this light in you. The creator is as if creating another universe within the small surface. But it sounds as if when you look at outside, the power is at work. When you look at human, it is the measure and small handwriting is at work, which reminds me of, to give an analogy, when you look at human, you observe power. When you look at DNA, you see a handwritten of measure. Everything is in tiny small letters. Human is written in a DNA. So that's sort of an analogy. He says with the same scale, if you like, human is now this handwritten letter of measure or qadar, but then the universe is the expanded, but this time the most obvious thing is the power, because all those huge galaxies or cycles of life everywhere is clear manifestation of power relative to what you observe in human.
Okay. Any comments or questions on that? Qadir.
I have a question for this line. His creating the macrocosm makes it as a place of prostration, while his giving of existence to the microcosm makes it as prostrating. So from the first line, I can obtain that making this world, this whole galaxies, is a place for ibadat. And then making the humans makes it as prostrating. How does that, like, what does that mean? Like, I fail to understand the following. His bringing the former into being makes it as a microcosm, makes it as prostrating. So if someone can explain that.
So I guess we're gonna put that question on hold.
So the paragraph here in italic, it has 7 parts, and each part will be discussed in a different section. There we just read the first section. That being
Okay,
said,
interesting. Yeah.
which may give a, let's say, an initial answer to maybe this question, not the full answer. But so the topic is Lahul Mulk, and he is the dominion, or the mulk is milk belongs to him, but there's also this like especially for him or only for him, like when we say it. So everything belongs to him, and also at the same time, whatever we talk about, it's there to worship him. Like this is what we understand from Lahul Mulk. And then he's talking about the universe, the human being, this, the duality, if you say, like how it makes sense. And like I was rereading the first phrase as like a first station of the same phrase, trying to, understand why he's making such a comparison between the two. Then I realized it's not a comparison. It's like more like to show that they are tied together, so you cannot separate them from one another. And whatever you see in a tree, for instance, you will see a similar thing from a different aspect in you as well. So as if it's saying that you understand up to this point, like we studied 3 phrases before that, starting from La ilaha illallah, right? La sharika la, wahdahu la sharika la, and then this one. So it's as if saying that, okay, everything belongs to him. The tree belongs to him. The rocks belongs to him. The stars belongs to him. You know that. And actually, there is no difference between you and the rest of the universe. When you look, like when you study, you will realize that the only difference is like a different aspects are emphasized. As we studied so far, when you look at the universe, and I think you can take the universe as something other than you, maybe, in this respect, or everything including you, maybe. But the emphasis is not on you with this macrocosm part. When you look at it, for instance, in this first section, it says, you will see the act of power. So you yourself, you think you are different, hence sometimes you assume a kind of independence, that everything belongs to him, but I have my, the worries, I have my duties, and so on and so forth. And the author says, no, if you look at yourself, yes, there's a difference, but it's not the difference in the sense that you don't belong to him. It's a different because when you look at yourself, you will see the emphasis is on, let's say, qadr or measure. Okay, so that's the difference. And that's how they relate to each other. So the second section, for instance, as Qadir was saying, yes, you will realize that you will see another type of difference between the universe and yourself. But actually, it's not a real difference. It's how they complement each other. One is to be contemplated about, and the other one, the one who is contemplating. So that's the relation between the two. So both of you still belong to him. Your duty, the universe's duty or purpose, still about him. So that's how I understand it.
Assalamu alaikum. I was thinking about this in terms of what problem of mine does this try to solve or resolve, right? And we had read that previous, the first half of the page, maybe last week or the week before. And there it said, you love and are connected to the universe, which is a property of the all-powerful and merciful one. Yet, although it grieves you by its wretchedness, you are unable to put it right. And it had also talked about how the truth of Lahul Mulk is about recognizing that I don't have control over things that I experience, right? And that load is heavy upon me. And this had me thinking a few different things. One, since this part that we're reading is also talking about macrocosm, microcosm, me, the universe. I was watching a documentary maybe a week or so ago, and it was about this telescope that I'm sure some of you have heard about. What was it called? The James Webb Telescope, right? And they spent like $10 billion on this telescope, decades, millions of people working on it, probably million or maybe a large quantity of people. More than five. And the whole premise of like their excitement over this telescope, and it's an exciting thing, I'm not discounting that, is that this will allow us to look into the past, into the galaxies, right? And tell us something about our origins. Like it's a very sort of a human-centric endeavor. I mean, it can't help but be a human-centric. Like this is something that we're going to look into the galaxies, we're going to look into the universe and learn something about myself. And when I see the sentence again from last week, you love and are connected to the universe, I can't help but think that that's a very human sort of relation to have. Yes, I love the universe, right? If I see a beautiful picture of galaxies, of stars colliding, like I'm like, wow, this is amazing. There's something there that I immediately relate to. And in relating to it, it immediately tells something about me, which is that I also don't want my existence, my galaxy to end, my universe to collapse. But if I see it as something that owns itself, then it has no power to preserve itself either, right? It's kind of doomed, and it's doomed, and I'm doomed, and the things that I love are doomed. So I think, at least for myself, when I was reading this, I was saying, okay, the author here, Imam Nursi, is trying to resolve this very human dilemma I have of how do I resolve this sorrow that I have towards myself, the universe, and the relationship that I have with it. And I guess here, trying to understand the truth or the meaning of Lahul Mulk is about trying to see reality as it is so that I can find a sort of satisfying answer or resolution to that sorrow. So that was kind of my understanding or framing of this section.
Sure, thanks for sharing. I find it interesting also that it's that we would see a picture of the universe and see our own reflection, staring back at us. It's a very interesting concept, and not, something that's worthy, the reflection of something deserving the grandeur of the universe, but just a insignificant, human being. But I guess it is reflective of the reality we see, we live, and, in how we interact in the world. I guess if there are no further comments, we'll probably just finish this proof italicized writing and go into the first section, because that is where Nursi elaborates more on this proof. So his creating the macrocosm makes it a place of prostration, while his giving of existence to the microcosm makes it as prostrating. His bringing the former into being makes it as a property, while his giving of existence of the latter makes it as owned. His art in the former, the macrocosm, displays it as a book, while his coloring in the latter shines through speech. His power in the former reveals his majesty, while his mercy in the latter arrays his bounty. His majesty in the former testifies that he is one, while his bounty in the latter proclaims that he is single, undivided. His stamp on the former is on all things, universal and particular, while his seal on the latter is on the body and on the limbs. First section. The macrocosm is similar to the microcosm. What is fashioned by his power is a missive expressing his determining, that is to say, the macrocosm, which is called the universe, and the microcosm, which is miniature, which is its miniature specimen and is called man, point to evidences of divine unity, both within man's self and outside it, that are written by the pens of divine power and divine determining. So I guess what's interesting to me is that here he says it's, the universe, or the human being, the microcosm, is a miniature specimen of the macrocosm, the universe. And they both point to divine unity. Anybody have any questions on that? Is that we're going to accept that at face value? You know, how do we understand this?
We are all religious people.
And if anything, one commonality is that they're both created things. I think we can see that clearly. But are we attempting to bridge the gap between his power and his determining? Is that something we should invest time in?
So, in general, I'm trying to remember the verse. There are signs in the afaq and anfus. Does anybody remember the verse? Afaqi wa fil anfusi. Can you read that?
You will show them my signs in the universe and within themselves, until it becomes clear to them that this Quran is the truth. It is not enough that your Lord is a witness for all things.
Okay, let me just read it from here again. Fussilat, verse number
53.
53. Okay. سنريهم آياتنا في الآفاق وفي أنفسهم حتى يتبين لهم أنه الحق أفلم يكفي بربك أنه على كل شيء شهيد. We shall show them our portents or ayat, signs, on the horizons and within themselves, until it will be manifest unto them that it is the truth. Does not your Lord suffice, since he is witness over all things? So here in the translation, the afaq and anfus is used, but these two words got lost in the translation. So when the author in here is talking about both within man's self and outside it, in this in the first paragraph, first section, first paragraph, both within man's self and outside it. So signs within the create, so all signs there are pointing to the creator. One is many of them are happening in the outside, but others are happening in here. So this is an interesting thing to think about, because the creator says we filled up everywhere with signs. If you would like to look at the ones that are closer to you, just look here. It's at your immediate disposal. Look at your feelings, look at your worries, look at your excitements. All these are signs. They are messages from your creator telling you something. And then read this sign in there and see a corresponding sign in the outside world as well, pointing to, again, the same maker. If we can read the existence like this, which the author is inviting us to, so what this should sound like is, of course, there's one way to take it. The first one is it the same pen who is writing something in me, in anfus, and also in afaq, in the horizons, in the outside? Is it the same pen? So this lahul mulk is about that, saying that since you see the parallelism in between the two, it is the same pen that is at work when writing signs within you and outside you. In parallel with this, what you can do is, once you see some feelings going on inside you, you can go and search for outside and say, how is this being manifest in the outside world? Or vice versa. You do observe something in the outside world, you can go and check inside, what is the similar pattern that is being manifest within me? So this type of a reading of existence is an interesting way of reading. You will look at yourself, you'll look outside, whichever gets easy at this moment. So sometimes we are really getting lost. I cannot figure out something in my life. like things are going wrong, nobody loves me, sort of things, right? You get lost in there. Then you can look outside world. How does the creation is being manifest when it comes to the same problem, same thing that I am going through in my personal world? And this is why when we were discussing today at Drexel for shooting stars, the same thing exactly applied there. When Nursi is studying the shooting stars, he's talking about first if you like, war, a battle between truth and falsehood. This is something that's happening in here. And you said that, is there a sign, a similar pattern in the outside world that the creator put in there to signify the same type of fight, if you like, with the heavens and the earth? Then you can interpret those shooting stars as a sign, as if because it's the same creator who is creating this fight of truth and falsehood within you, is the one who is creating this shooting stars. I mean, you can simply take them as asteroids randomly entering the atmosphere and burning, but you can only accept this if you think that there is randomness, chance in the existence. But if you conclude that there's no randomness, no chance in the existence, everything is a meaningful transcription, a writing, then you say that, oh, what does this sort of a fight, because it looks like somebody is throwing a fireball to someone. Oh, it is a sign that this fight between truth and falsehood is happening at all layers. And the creator is putting a sign over there. So this then becomes a beautiful reading of the same pattern in you, in Enfus, and then turning back and looking outside and observing a similar thing and interpreting it as such when it comes to Afak. But of course, you can do this only if you see that it is the same kind of power and Qadar is at play here and there.
Are we limited to reading the macro and the micro only through the lens of power and qadar? Or, I mean, there's definitely, as we learned before, there's we read existence through the names, and we can certainly.
Yeah, so in the first one, he went with Qudra and Qadar. In the second section, he's going to talk about Masjid, Sajid. He would say that you observe that the creation is made as a masjid, where as if everywhere is set up for prostration. And then you will observe yourself as prepared as a sajid. You are invited into this masjid for prostration. So then you see that, oh, this is how in the Enfus, this prostration is manifesting itself as a being which is very adequate for prostrating. And then the macrocosm in this case is a very beautiful giant masjid, every corner of which you can prostrate. If not you, other creation must be prostrating, like other conscious beings in all the corners of this existence, because it's like a vast mosque.
All right, we'll move on to the next paragraph, next page. There is within man the sample on a very small scale of the orderly art which is in the universe, and as the art that is present in the vast sphere testifies to the single maker, so the microscopic art which is on a tiny scale in man points to the maker and demonstrates his unity. Moreover, as man is a meaningful missive inscribed by his sustainer and a well-composed ode written by divine determining, so is the universe a well-composed ode written by that same pen, but on a vast scale. I guess we're seeing more comparisons and similarities between man and the universe. If no comments, we can read the last paragraph. Is it at all possible? I always find it interesting when Nursi starts off with that. He's clearly trying to make a point. Is it at all possible that anything other than the single one of unity could have a hand in placing the stamp of uniqueness on men's faces? which, although they resemble one another, all have their distinguishing marks and have a hand in setting the seal of unity on the universe, all of whose creatures cooperate, helping and supporting one another. Could anything interfere in this? So I think what we have before discussed the stamp of different things, stamp of unity. Here we are discussing a stamp of uniqueness. How, you know, maybe people resemble others in their forms, but there are, you know, generally, but there are specific, you get to specifics, everyone has their own qualities and characteristics. And I guess that somehow has a hand in setting the seal of unity on the universe. I don't necessarily understand that one very well. The next part, where creatures cooperate, helping and supporting each other, is, I think, more easy to understand through the lens of ecosystems and, you know, societies, communities, and other things. Anyone have a maybe an insight into what the setting the seal of unity on the universe might be? I saw Dua first.
I guess the seal of unity comes back to like how even though like we all look different, we're sort of like made up of the same ingredients. So all of us are babies first, and then we, you know, grow up, and then, you know, like I guess like we have DNA, so like the things that sort of unite us. And like even if you think about like animals, like no two animals like look alike. You have different like breeds of cat, but then, you know, like in their features and how they operate, they're all still cats, and that is like the stamp of unity and like order among them. I also want to say like the art example made me think of like, what do I think of as mulk in this? What do I think of as like mulk in this, like in my everyday life? And I was thinking of like, so in Urdu, in our language, the word mulk means country. So I was thinking of like a country, and how like if I think of the United States, you have like a specific art that tells you that, you know, like this is the United States. Like you have a certain way that the streets are colored, or like the stop signs look a certain way, or like traffic signals look a certain way. And that order is like, even though you have like these different states, like you sort of have that like art that is similar among them, or like there is an order. And I was thinking of like how basically like that's what it means to be like a mulk, that even though like we are the microcosm and the universe out there is the macrocosm, there are things that sort of that you can look at and be like, yeah, you know, like our creator is the same, in that like, you know, like everything is made up of atoms, or like, I don't know. I was struggling to come up with examples, but yeah, that's sort of like
Sure,
what I thought of.
sure. Thank you for sharing. Zareen, think you had, did you? Oh, okay. Sure. Whoever wants to go.
No, I have two things, I guess. One, I liked his usage of well-composed ode, right? If you read poems by the same author, after a certain point you can say, oh, this poet always writes about these themes that emerge. There's a certain signature there that you can come to recognize. But I had a different question as well, which is that, so I'm sure at least I have, but others of you might have also at some point in your life received forwarded videos from esteemed aunties and uncles in your WhatsApp chat. One of which might have looked something like first a view of the galaxy, and then suddenly another picture, and then zooms out and it's the human eye. And then there's comments of Soprano and mashallah. So is this my question to everyone? Is this what we should understand? And it may very well be. I mean, I'm, you know, putting it in a sort of joking way, but is this what we should understand as man being, or the human being a sample of the orderly art which is in the universe? or of being a well-composed ode written by divine determining. But and related to that, I guess there's this emphasis on determination, measure, and I'm still trying to, and Brother Yusuf kind of expounded a bit on it, but I'm still trying to understand the meaning of his emphasis there on that.
So I've been reading the same ayah that Zarar and Yusuf mentioned, the Fussilat 53, and there it says, like, we will show our signs, ayatina, our signs, and then describes our signs part, like our signs in the universe, if you take it, and our signs in themselves. So wherever you look, you will see our signs, as if, right? So you call it yourself, but you are nothing but our signs. Just like, when you look outside and you look at the universe, you see nothing but our signs, ayah. The same way, when you look at yourself, you will see nothing but our ayah. And this is what we're going to show them until so that it will become clear for them, and what is become clear, that innahul haq, that it will become clear that it is true. So combining with the text that we are studying, as if the ayah says that we will show them lahul mulk, by showing them that whatever is outside is our signs, our ayahs. And here, for instance, the author says, when you look at our outside world, you will see the panel of power, some ayahs. And then when you look at yourself, you will still see some ayahs, which is what is it? Something of qadar? Pen of qadar? What is it? Pens of divine power and divine determining. Okay. Let's say pen of divine determining. But the point is, everywhere you will see just ayah of the creator and nothing more. And this is how you will understand that lahul mulk. Because really, like wherever I look, when I try to understand, for instance, like what is the purpose of my life, you will first realize that, first of all, when you say my life, you are nothing but a letter. In the first section, it says letter from the creator, right? You are there so that yourself and others will read you and learn about the creator. This is your life. Let's make it clear, right? And then you will ask the question, what is the purpose of my life? What is the purpose of this letter now? So the purpose will not be about you anymore, but about the creator. So the lahul mulk in every, at every level. So what is the point of my life? It's look at the creator. It doesn't look at you. So, yep. Anyway, but maybe another thing is about this divine determining qadar with the human being. I guess when Duha was giving example that from the babyhood, childhood to adulthood, we see these perfect, the the qadr, the determining, how everything is out of measure, how everything follows a certain proportion, right? Whichever aspect of a human being you take, you will say that, oh, somebody must be knowing about this, because it is very well connected to the past, very well connected to the future. So somebody must be knowing it. It's put in a place, not, out of sudden, but very well connected. So this is what I understand from divine determining. And all these, I was thinking about a example. It's as if saying that when you look at, for instance, a watch, nobody has school watches anymore, but the sister, I think, has one. When you look at your watch, like open it inside, you will see all these gears working together, right? So when you look at it, you say every single piece of gear must be put there by the same person, like the same, watchmaker. So you cannot say that, all these gears are his dominion, but not this one. It is, out of somewhere, like a nowhere. By chance, it happened to be there. You cannot say that. So you will see the same thing with yourself and the rest of the universe. You are just another gear inside the watch. And you are also his mulk. And the mulk here is not only, means that he's the ruler, but also you are part of his game, part of his plan, part of his, let's say, actions.
Yeah, I like the reminder of the allusion to the universe being represented by representing the book of creation, and everyone maybe representing a word or a letter within that book. And so, maybe if you take the letter out of context, it seems, not related to the book, but in the context, it is perfectly in order with whatever else is going on. And also understanding that, the book was written by a single being. So I think we can go. Okay. Okay.
I guess another example that I thought of when Berkan was talking was about how, like, when we look out into the universe, like, we tend to think it's static. Like, we think like the stars are fixed, or that the sun is fixed, and we are the only ones who are on a journey. But now that, we have telescopes and we've made discoveries, it seems as if like everything is also on a journey of its own, and everything is moving, and the universe today was not apparently what it looked like many years ago, and everything is sort of like spreading out. And the sun is not always going to rise, like the sun is going to die one day. So it also like sort of goes through the same life cycle as us. The earth is going through changes. So, like I was just thinking about like how that also like tells me that like I am not the only one, and there are other beings that are also on journeys of their own. And that sort of like makes me think of like the similarity we have to the universe.
Thanks for sharing. Aya.
Thank you. I guess like I could be wrong, and if you guys talked about this in the previous weeks, sorry for like bringing it up again, but the hadith, or is it like a thing that's like Allah doesn't change someone unless he changes himself? I guess, Brother Burkhan, you were talking about like the gears in the watch and like kind of what you were saying, Ashna, like I always think of like what's coming up for me with that, which is like it's very like natural to like kind of like conceptualize the universe and certain things that happen to me as like in like the mulk. But I think something that always is like anxiety inducing for me is the like that I need to do something. I think based off like, like that hadith or that concept, but then I know it's like it says here that even like the things that we must do are not in our control. So I don't know, I guess that was my question of like kind of how to reconcile what mulk means even in our own actions, but then that responsibility as well.
We are back to Qadar. So author here, when he talked about human, he said he started talking about Qadar this time by speaking about human. So it is hard to talk about Qadar when I'm looking at the future. But in order to be able to say that, yes, everything has been created within measure, I need to look back. Everybody should look at their lives by the back, because we don't see the future anyways. But as I'm living life, or when I'm looking to the future, I feel like, and I want to feel like, I have the reins at my hand. But when I look back, I'm realizing how little of a control, if any, I had over the things that I experienced in my life. So this is actually being a sign for Qadar for me. Looking back, because now I don't want to admit, I don't want to say that everything is at his control and whatnot. But when I look back, even for the things that I thought, oh, how smart I was by making this decision and whatnot, I'm realizing what insignificant of a role I played for the things to be panning out as they happen to be. Yes, I was internally playing a role in regards to how I was interpreting the things. But in terms of how things panned out, how the creation came into being, I am observing a perfect measure in there. If you look at, I don't know, in my life, how did I ended up studying in the States? How I am still living in the same block for the past 13 years. Couldn't move out of this 45 and Spruce neighborhood. Or like my marriage, children, my friends, friendships, and how little of a control. But when I look back, I'm realizing this, how with perfect measure, everything is put together.
It's a perfect marriage, right? You don't have any-
I wouldn't be able to, like, because I remember how many iterations of computation I do in my head, like as if I am calculating all possible outcomes that could come out, and then I say it's not happening like this, it wouldn't happen like, I mean, I was just overthinking and it was not taking me anywhere. At the end of the day, I messed up everything that I was afraid of messing up anyways. But you are observing that everything is being put in measure, whatever I think to be right or wrong. Even some of the things that I think I did wrong, later on I'm realizing that it was purposefully made as such. But I know still I'm going in this very fine line between qadar and responsibility. As we were mentioning last time we talked this, my responsibility, my choice comes into play as how I am interpreting those signs. Those signs are being put in front of me. With a perfect measure, those letters are being written. How do I know that? When I look back, this is how I can easily see that. But then how about how I do interpret them? What sort of a message I take out of them? This is where my responsibility lies. So in this case, this then gives me a very solid foundation and this is why actually Nursi also mentions this, the signs that you read in yourself are more secure because they're immediately available to you. Like when it comes to talking about signs in the afaq, in the horizons, I mean, how many of us have ever used an electron microscope here? None of us. or like we read them in the books, so we know that such signs have existed per reports of others, but we didn't do it by ourselves. And it's like an endless pit. And if you have those tools, you can explore them. If not, you will not be able to. But when it comes to exploring here, all those tools are already given to you. So you can really freely explore yourself in the sense that you can keep questioning, why do I feel like that? Why am I upset today? Where did this upsetness coming from? Just keep digging on this feeling itself. Feeling is given to you. Questioning, ability to question the feeling is given to you. Go as deep as you can. So here the author establishes qadar in the self first and says you do observe the same pen of qadar in the outside. So it's an interesting, if he were to take it the other way around, we would maybe be more comfortable in this day and age, because we would say that, oh yes, science is clearly showing that everything is very nicely measured and put there. But maybe to surprise us, the author is taking it reverse in this case and saying that, look at what tools are given to you and how well you can investigate yourself. And this is, if you like, equally valuable or rich of science in here. A library which is at your fingertips here. There's another library out there in the existence, but to the extent that you put effort. I mean, I've never been to top of Mount Everest or to top of any mountain, to be honest, to explore the science of the creator there. But how about yourself? Think about some ups and downs of your mood, ups and downs of your career at some point, which is another mountain that are there. Investigate them. What does it tell you? Why did the creator make you climb, and then there was a cliff and things were going good, and then it started going downhill? What does this tell you? And everybody's life are filled with such, if you like, terrain of existence, and you know it better than anyone because you have the first-hand experience. So, I mean, this is why I really like the way he is putting qadar in here. And I think we can we are first-hand witnesses of qadar when we look at the past.
So in the first station of the same phrase, just to make Aya's question a little bit more complicated, more challenging even maybe. The author says, I will read the second paragraph of the first part. O man, do not suppose that you own yourself, for you have no control over any of the things that concern you. Such a load would be heavy. Also, you are unable to protect yourself, to avoid disasters, or to do things that you must. In which case, do not suffer pain and torment without reason. The ownership is another's. The owner is both all-powerful and all-merciful. Rely on his power and do not cast aspersions on his mercy. Put grief behind you, be joyful, discard your troubles, and find serenity. So it sounds like with a superficial reading, it would sounds like, don't do anything, don't worry about anything. You are fine. But the author still impose, let's say, a duty on man, on the human, by saying that owner is both all-powerful and all-merciful, so you should know this. This is one thing. The second thing is rely on his power. So reliance is onto you, kind of. So what I understand from this, like when it comes to such discussions about different things that seemingly contradict to each other, and I ask the question, how am I reconcile them and so on? What we do is usually like a top-down approach. We assume that I know what obligation, or you said responsibility, did you say responsibility? the responsibility is, I know what everything belongs to him, like Lahul Mulk is, including my actions. I already know both of them, and now they are contradictory. Now I'm trying to reconcile them. So maybe another possibility would be from bottom up, meaning start with what you have at the hand, like responsibility, for instance. Forget about, how people define it, the books defines it, and so on. Just look at yourself and ask the question, do you have this sense of responsibility? And you say, yes, I do. So it exists, right? And then you ask the same question, do I have this understanding that everything is his mulk, including my actions and so on? So you ask this question. And to the extent you have an answer to that question, right? So the reconciliation will be already there, because you're talking about two existing things. Like two existing things cannot contradict each other because they exist at the same time. So the question becomes like, when I say, for instance, I have this responsibility, but at the same time, when I question, every time I question whether I create this or not, I say, no, I don't create this. He creates that. So for instance, I have the responsibility, the sense of responsibility. Let's make it clear. So I have sense of responsibility. So let's not take it as, a normativity. Like I'm not trying to assign a responsibility to anyone. I'm not saying that you have to do this or you have to do that. We're not talking about this. We're just talking about the sense of responsibility that I have. So for instance, I have a sense of responsibility for the future of my daughters. Okay? And I have this sense of responsibility. When I think about them, when I think that something bad will happen to them, I feel terrible. And I tell myself that, I must have done it better. This is the sense of responsibility I have. But at the same time, I ask the question that, can I control their future? Answer is no. Whatever I do, it's out of my control. It's obvious. Can I see their future at all? No. Even if I try, the answer, even if I try, the answer is a definite no. So that whatever question I ask, can I do it? Can I do it? Can I do it? The answer is always no. Right? So it is obvious to me that Lahul Mulk, like their future is in his hands. That's for sure. I go back and I ask the question, but what about the sense of responsibility? I would say then maybe it was a sign, an ayah of something else. That I was maybe mistaken with my first understanding of responsibility. Because when I first sensed it, I thought it was telling me, the sense is telling me something, right? It's a message, ayah, as we study. At first, I thought it was telling me, Birkan, you should work really hard and make their future bright. That's what I thought the responsibility means. But when I realized that Lahul Mulk, including their future, I say, oh, this responsibility was telling me something else. It was telling me that, Birkan, you cannot control. You cannot see their future. You cannot control their future. You have no power. But still, you want them to be, happy. So you have only one chance. To find the one who can see their future, find the one who can control their future, and rely on him. That's what this sense of responsibility is telling you. So the reconciliation is still like automatically there. As author says, rely on him because he is powerful. He is all merciful. Whatever happens to them, your daughters, will be out of mercy. You will realize that.
And this sense of responsibility will say that, okay, I should rely on him. I should try to please him so that I will see a happy future for my daughters. That's all I can do. Choose relying on him. That's my responsibility. Now I have a better understanding of responsibility. Otherwise, as I said at the beginning, so I have to repeat, I apologize. If we start from the top, saying that I already know what responsibility is, I already know what lehul mulk means. Now I'm trying to reconcile. Don't do that. Ask the question, what do you mean with the lehul mulk? And what do you mean with this sense of responsibility? And then you will realize that they reconcile very easily.
Alrighty. I agree with you, but I don't know. I think I probably need some clearing in this part. So let's say I have a fish. I still have a responsibility to feed it. If I don't, it will die. Because
This is how you feel, this is how you think for sure.
no, but if I don't feed it, I know the end result will be death for it, because there is no one, because that's my aquarium, right? And I'm actually the one who has to provide that fish. There is no one else who can provide it. So it would be my responsibility to feed it. If I don't, I know the end result would be death. No?
I guess what it comes down to is ownership is the milk is the the milk of the aquarium or the fish tank. Does that belong to you or does that belong to someone else?
My aquarium. I'm saying that in the end, I have that responsibility to feed it in order for it to survive. If I don't feed it, then it will die.
Sure. Anybody want to answer that? You got the mic there, Con.
Oh, so I guess we discussed this before, like forget about the fish. Let's talk about feeding ourselves, right? And because we discussed this before, I will just give the conclusion that I remember is that only thing I can do there is just willing to feed myself. That's all I can do. The action is not mine. Even the sense is not mine that I should feed myself. It's not from myself. I find it just there. And I cannot move my hand. I cannot grab the food. The food is not mine. All I can do is just will to feed this body. That's all I can do. So when this is the reality, if you tell me that, but Birkan, it is your responsibility, I would say, first of all, it's not my responsibility because even the sense of responsibility is given to me. I can say that I observe or I experience this responsibility. That's a proper way of saying it, I would say. It's my responsibility to feed my body. I would say it's not even your body that you cannot even control it. You cannot even move your hand. You can only will to move your hand. So there are a lot of my needs to be discarded in this example. The same goes with the fish tank. Like, I understand what you mean when you say it is my fish, I have to feed it and so on. But I take it as a layman speaking. Like when you say it is my fish, my tank, and I have to feed, I say, yeah, a layman can say such a thing. But if we want to understand something, we cannot use layman's terms. I'm not sure if it is clear or not. What I mean is that once you realize that it's something given to you, right? So that you will read it. If you come to such an understanding conclusion, you cannot go back and say that, but it is mine. No, it's not. You have this sense of responsibility. You feel that if this fish is not fed, it is not something good. You have this sense, that's all. And then you have will that, I want this fish to be fed. If you say that, yeah, this is true as well. The rest, even if you try to, to take the ownership, you cannot. You cannot move your hand. You cannot get the fish food. You cannot create this fish food. You cannot make, for instance, your fish to eat it. You cannot make that this fish food will be good for this fish. Who decides that this fish food will not poison your fish? Who decides that? You have no control on any of these. Only thing you have is this sense that something bad will happen if this fish is not fed, and you want it to be fed. That's all. The question is then, how are you going to read this feeling, the responsibility, and so on?
Roberto was also going to say something, but very brief. Okay. So, as far as I understand, I am here in this existence so that I say La ilaha illallah. And that, in a nutshell, this is what I'm expected to do. Feeding the fish is either you say La ilaha illallah or you deny it. It sounds like it has nothing to do with La ilaha illallah, but in fact, feeding the fish itself is your creator is inviting you for another, if you like, use case, another practice domain for La ilaha illallah. And whether I take it as such, because if I took it as such, I should have say, as Birkan was explaining, I am neither the owner of the food, nor the fish, nor anything. They're all put in front of me as if you are taking a class and you're in the classroom. Laptop belongs to the school, paper belongs to the school, pen belongs to the school, classroom, everything belongs to the school. The knowledge that were taught to you belongs to, came from the school. Questions and options belong to the teacher, and you are expected to demonstrate whether you learned what you were supposed to learn. That's all the whole setup is for. You can choose the correct answer which was taught to you, or you can go with another choice, or you can, as one of my students have written, I was grading midterms, YOLO. He has written YOLO to the answer, one of the questions. I guess. Was it the right answer or not? No. So, this is what is expected of me. This is how I would like to take responsibility. What is expected of me as a student is to learn and properly choose the right answer, which is taught to me. And if I do that, I would say, oh, thank you, teacher. You taught me and the exam was very good. You exactly asked what you taught us. And I was able to answer because you covered everything perfectly in the class. But if I mess up in the exam, I cannot challenge the teacher or anything. I am the one who is worthy to blame in this case, because teacher would say, look, I taught you everything. I prepared you the test environment, like the classroom and everything. I gave you the choices. I even gave you hints. And in the class and the recitation and everything, we talked about it several times, don't we? Yes. So I am the one to blame if I answer the question wrong. I am the one to blame. If now let's make it practical with the fish. So in the case of the fish, the one who makes me know that feeding is important. Now he gives me this fish and gives me the food and say that appreciate the thing that I am making you get fed. Now I would like you to feed this fish just so that you see I am the one who feeds, the creator says. But as let's say when we are cooking in the morning, the egg, let's say Zainab comes and says, can I, mix the egg? Can I, yeah, mix the egg? So we would like to teach her something. Otherwise, we don't lead her mixing the egg. To teach her something, we say, oh, yeah, mix the egg. Likewise, the creator says, yeah, please feed the fish. Because you're not feeding the fish. All you do is dropping the thing over there. You're not feeding any individual cells. Still, feeding is a complex thing, right? We're not doing any portion of it. All we do is we take the food, which is created by the creator, with the power that the creator gives us, move it over the thing, and that. So everything is his, really. All I'm doing is, the way he taught me, I am choosing the right option, saying that, yes, you are the feeder, you are the provider, you are the sustainer. I can choose not to do that. I can choose to say, no, I will not choose it. The creator says, okay, but since this is the purpose of the creation, I want to teach you something. He says, I'm going to create the consequence of your choice as well. Still, I don't create it. Actually, we will get to that. One of the names that we will read would be, when you meet, he is the one who gives death. So death is not a natural consequence of life not being there, or conditions of life is not there, therefore death emerges. No, death is another creation. So based on my choice, consequences are being created. Creator has his wisdom of making that sort of creation as well. But for me, it was a matter of la ilaha illallah. So this is why our whole life is actually, all our choices, if we dig deep down, we will realize that it's a matter of iman and kufr. Do I admit the truth? Like as the verse was saying, that lahul haqq, do I say that this is the truth? Or do I cover it up and say that, no, although I have seen the right answer, I don't want to choose or admit the right answer, cover it up. This is the whole life. But yes, in practice, we feel like it is feeding someone, killing someone, or being proud or ignorant or this and that. Deep down, every action is iman or kufr. And this is why Nursi has like a motto, sort of a sentence. Within every sin, he says, there's a path that goes to unbelief. Within every sin. Because every choice is actually a choice between belief and unbelief, and every sin is, in fact, has this, if you like, seed of unbelief or denial covering up in there. If it's not cleaned up quickly, he says, the sins, if you do not destroy those sins with istighfar, then they're going to grow up and they will swallow you. I mean, it's in depth, he explains it, but it makes sense because every denial, every rejection, every wrong choice, every sin at its core is a denial. In the opposite, every good deed actually is not a good deed for your behalf. You are just admitting the truth about the creator. You didn't bring anything to the table. Everything was already there. You're just admitting that you are the one who makes it. So this is why the topic of qadar in this case, since we are looking at life from a perspective where we feel like we are in charge, we can do some change, be the change, make some change, that sort of an attitude. But what is it that have you ever changed? Have you ever created anything in life? So we need to question all these. But of course, if I speak like this, especially if you read a bit of philosophy, are you following fatalism? Or is it that we should just let it go, whatever happens? It's not what is being discussed here. Focus on, if it's a matter of feeding the fish, focus on what is your share here. My share there is feeding the fish, and it's layer by layer. Feeding the fish is the first layer. Open it up. Oh, actually, it's not feeding the fish. Choosing to feeding the fish. It is observing the sustainer in there. Observing that I am not the sustainer. He is the sustainer. Observing that I am not merciful. Because you do have this feeling of mercy, but it's not me. That mercy is also put in me. That caring is also put in me. So these are all the aspects of iman in there. I could go the other way around. I can go to and tell the fish, If I were not here, you would be dead. You should be thankful to me. This is denial. Still, I can be feeding the fish and expecting a thank from the fish, but this is denial, total denial. So the outcome is not based on, oh, the fish survived at the end of the day, so I did a good deed. No. If I am feeding the fish and in return, thinking that I did a good job, I didn't do a good job. It was supposed to be short. Sorry.
All right, did that answer your question? Did that answer your question?
Oh, okay. I was reading the one book. There is also anxiety part of it, like other than responsibility. So I have this sense of responsibility. What is my responsibility? I ask. And then by contemplating, I realize that, okay, my responsibility is maybe just, relying on him, realizing that he's the feeder and so on. And sometimes there's also this anxiety that things will go bad. I have to take care of them and so on beyond the responsibility. And I think it goes back to what Brother Yusuf is saying. When you make a choice, when you say that, no, it's my fish and I have to feed it. When you try to do something that you cannot attain, because even if you try, you cannot feed your fish. You cannot take this food and put in his mouth and then distribute it to the cells and make it to be used as energy and so on. This is feeding, right? You cannot do it. When you attempt to do it, when you say that, no, it's on my shoulders, then these anxieties being created in you. As another ayah, saying that you are on the wrong path. This is not what you were supposed to be doing. Do not misplace your responsibility. When you do this sense of anxiety is created as the fire of hell, a glimpse of hellfire. You start burning, and now you know that my stance is not right, because my choice is burning me. So it means I made a wrong choice. Relying on him versus relying on myself, I relied on myself. Now I should change my direction and go to the Sirat al-Mustaqim. When you go outside the straight path, you will see such anxieties and so on as a sign, as an ayah, to let you go to the straight path.
Just to quickly add, and I shouldn't could relate better, but there's a mutual friend who says, whenever you're going to make a choice, you're going to make the wrong choice. Like, you won't make the choice with all the information. Like, you don't know all the information. You don't know the future. You don't know what's going to happen. So you make a choice. It will definitely be the wrong choice. And I guess the mercy of Qadar is when I look to it in the past and I say, wow, I made such a terrible choice. But then I look to what that choice led to and what the things that were put in front of me and the lessons I learned from them and the education that was put in front of me. It's like, maybe I made such a choice which was wrong, or at that time I could have made a better choice, but I didn't know. But what was put before me, it was so well presented. The education was so well formed for me. And there I see, through the power of Qadar, maybe I made a choice, but whatever I chose could not have made such an orderly thing. What was put before me was not of my own doing. So I can see some comfort there. So it helps my anxiety, because you get the anxiety when I say I could have done it this way, I should have done it that way, I messed up. And it's like, yeah, you will mess up, you will make the wrong choice. And that's where istighfar comes in. And that's where, no matter what my choice is, he's still the one that creates. I still don't own that responsibility to create. But I do have the responsibility of maybe going back and seeing maybe my approach was wrong, and I could change the approach I had, change the view, how I read it.
And actually, this is an important point because let's say you chose to kill someone, and that death is created, so that person is bad. But years later, and you can take the life examples of Sahaba, and before their belief, they did terrible things, maybe killing people or whatever. But years later, they realized that those choices were wrong, and then repentance came in. So what's the idea with repentance? Converting their sins into good deeds, which sounds very crazy. Like you killed someone, which is a bad deed. That bad deed is being converted to good deed. It's not like it's being erased. After you repent, that person is not being resurrected, still dead. If we take the creation aspect of it, it's gone. Like even if you repent, you cannot bring him back, somebody would say, right? So your repentance has no value for me, somebody could say. But for the purposes of the existence of that person, it was education. The Creator created him for an education. So realizing that I made a mistake, my aspect of doing this choice was wrong, I admit it, and I am now converting this error into a learning experience. The Creator says, okay, I'm going to convert your yubaddilullahu sayyi'atim hasanatin. So the bad deed is being converted into a good deed because it became an opportunity. And this is like famous with Sahabe. So they were burying their daughters alive. So years later, they were very much in remorse of that and crying. That horrible action of them, with this lens of repentance, became a good deed for them because now they know it with firsthand experience, how horrible of an act it is, and it should be pushed away. It's a choice which should never be taken. The opposite should be taken. What the mercy commands them, mercy of the Creator commands them, should have been taken. And now they are sure of it. They learned it 100% after making this mistake and repenting on that. If we take the creation aspect of it, they cannot bring back the that girl. It's gone from that angle. But the point is, we are living the life in a way that our duty is really on iman or kufr. Do I, in this test bed, sometimes it's going to be in my relationship with my children, sometimes with my wife, sometimes with the friends, with the boss, with the apple tree outside, or things like that. But everything, if you pay attention deep down, the choice is always iman versus kufr. And this is why it never, up until last moment of your life, there's always hope. You can go back to many, many years ago, you made a wrong choice. You attributed something to yourself. You covered the truth. Realizing your mistake today, you can fix this mistake. It's not dying in this sense. As long as life is given, that opportunity is with you. And that's why for, let's say, somebody who is entering to a religion anew, they say this conversion of bad deeds to good deeds happen. And for a believer, they say it is for Hajj, because Hajj is a worship which should be serving the purpose of rebirth, a resurrection for the believer. So it should be this way of me questioning my entire life. The purpose of Hajj is to question my entire life, consider the right, wrong choices that I made, and use this as an occasion to undo all those wrong choices and say, I was wrong. I should have said La ilaha illallah rather than saying me. So this is why I think it makes perfect sense that with istighfar, those bad deeds become good deeds.
All right, with that, I think we're gonna end. Thank you all for participating, and online people for listening patiently. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka anta al-alim al-hakim wa akhiru da'wahum